Welcome to another video, thanks for joining us. As you have probably already guessed, the bus is back in the workshop. Yep, it's broken again. I drove it here this morning, perfectly fine, after sitting at home for ages. It was a really nice drive in actually. The sun's shining, it's a beautiful day, but there's been one niggling reason why I've not been using the bus very much, because the fuel gauge doesn't work. I know that's pathetic, and John reminds me of that quite often, because this early bus should never have had a fuel gauge. The old bus I used to have was a 66, it's a later model split, and they did have a fuel gauge, and I've just always been used to having one, and I just don't want to get left at the side of the road with no fuel. I know I could carry a jerry can, I know. It just bugs me that it's never worked. John's gone through the wiring loom, I have no clue why it's not working, so all I could do really was blame the sender. John agreed, looks like the sender was at fault, and on these, the fuel tank with the sender unit in it that tells the gauge how much fuel is in the tank is behind the engine. Two ways you can actually change the fuel sender in these. Number one, take the bumper off, the rear valance, take the engine out, remove it all to then gain access to the tank and the sender and deal with it that way. Or what a lot of people do is cut a hole in the firewall in the metalwork above it and just get in from the top. But that would be, first of all, criminal, cutting a hole, an unnecessary hole in the back of this really early bus, and also far too easy. When have we ever done anything the easy way? So it's up on its axle stands. I'm going to take the bumper off, the rear valance off, and then start disconnecting all the hoses and wires from the engine. We're going to pull the engine out, see if we can get access to that fuel tank to get the sender off. Hopefully the new sender will turn up today as well. Should be here very soon. The couriers have texted me already. So we're looking good. Hopefully we'll get the fuel gauge working. John's not here. The one day that I need him, this is John's living. This is what John does for a living, working on these. He's literally an expert at these. And the one day he's not here, and I've decided to do it. Right, now I've got access to everything I need to get access to. Next thing is fuel lines, accelerator cable, and then the wires to the alternator. And that's all of the sort of fiddly bits. Then there's just the 4 bolts holding it onto the gearbox. All right, I know what you're all thinking. And yes, I am really missing my 2-post lift. I didn't say it, and a lot of you had a go at me in the comments. But it was broken and it wasn't worth fixing. It was already very old, and the MOT garage gave it to me because it was a bit knackered, so it had its day, sadly. But if things like this keep happening, maybe I need to get another one. Oh my god. Okay, fuel down my elbow, perfect. Now I've got 4 bolts to undo. 2 easy ones underneath, 1 relatively easy one behind the fan shroud, and 1 on the other side, which is also holding the starter motor on. And all of that is reaching around the engine bay, leaning underneath. Got it. That is my trusty little 1500 single port removed. It's looking good. Pleased to say the rear main seal looks good. There's no, the clutch, the new clutch that we put in the last episode is all looking nice and dry. It's all looking good. And now, importantly, I've actually got access to the fuel tank, which was sitting behind the engine. There it is. And at the top of that, there is the sender. I might have to take the tank out. I think I probably will. That is not looking promising. Neither is that. It's not plugged in. So I've just put the fuel hose into a little jerry can. I'm going to drain the fuel tank, take it out of the bus. That way I can clean it out, slosh it out, get rid of any sort of rusty debris or anything that might be in the tank. I know it's nice and clean, and actually get proper access to the fuel sender. I'm still not convinced I'd be able to actually get the new one in with the firewall where it is. Oh, let's take a little moment to appreciate how nice and original this is. Look at that, beautiful. Oh no. Right, there's a cable tie, hang on. We're out. Hey! Brilliant. Fuel tank is out, and that was really not that difficult. I'm so glad I took it out because it's so much easier to work on now, and I can show you what's going on. The new sender has also turned up. I'll grab that in a second and show you. But first, let's get the old one removed, and let me show you what I think is wrong. This is the earth, and it's flapping around and loose. That's no, look. That's not ideal. This is covered in tape. That is the actual signal that goes to the gauge. I'm pretty sure, I know it's supposed to be isolated from the housing, but I'm pretty sure it's not supposed to flap around like that. What a mess. There's no nut. Oh my goodness. That doesn't look great for bolting the new one on. Oh dear. I've fished out the old remains of the old fuel sender. The new fuel sender has turned up. Our good old friends at Just Campers have come through. Next day delivery, bang on, perfect service. Thank you very, very much to Just Campers. Time is ticking, and I'm not sure I've really explained exactly how time critical this project is, because I've driven here in the bus today and I've got no way of getting home unless I get this fuel tank and the engine fixed and back in the bus so I can actually drive home at the end of the day. Problem I've got now is all the holes where the sender was screwed on are horribly bent and twisted and torn up and deformed. So I'm going to hammer those flat and offer up the new sender. Let's see what it looks like. But we've got to get going, so come on. Things have escalated. Looks like I might be getting the bus home. The sender doesn't fit. Not Just Campers' fault, not even my fault. I ordered the right one. I'm going to blame this aftermarket tank. It hits the bottom before it touches the floor. Oh, I'm so annoyed. I have no idea what's inside this tube, but I feel like I've only got one option at this point. I can't order another one. The bus is stuck in the workshop. John's coming up tomorrow to work on something else. I need to get this out. I think I'm going to have to open up the bottom of this sender tube and see if I can make it shorter, but then is that going to throw off the actual reading? Oh, I don't know. Oh. Right, we're in. And I think it's looking possible. I don't know. There's a tiniest, thinnest piece of wire that runs from the top fitting from an electrical connection down the rod, all the way down. Then this white plastic bit at the end, it goes through a hole, round that, back down again, through little contacts on the float. And as the float slides up and down like that, it's running against that thin piece of wire. And it must measure resistance. I can only assume it measures resistance along. The further away it is, the more resistance there is. I don't know exactly how it works, but it's too long. The end of the steel rod down the middle is M3. I'm wondering if I can fire up the soldering iron, unsolder that tiny thin wire, loop that off, get that out of the way, slide the float down the shaft, cut some more threads further up the steel bar down the middle, slot it all back together, feed the wire over, and then pull it a bit tight, pull a bit further through, cut the wire down a little bit and solder it back in place. That is the plan. That's what I'm going to try and do. It is ambitious because it's all tiny little things. Brother Dan, if you're watching, I'm sorry. But actually, thank you, Brother Dan, because last time Brother Dan was up here, he donated me his old soldering iron. So this is its first outing. Fingers crossed, wish me luck. Right, well, I've done it now. It's still making all the right noises. I used to have a tube as a kid that went. It's reminded me of one of those. They were a lot more fun than this. Assume that it's working, and I've got to the point where if this doesn't work, I'm just going to put it back in the van, and who cares? I won't have a fuel. I'll admit defeat. I'll admit that I won't have a fuel gauge. I have no clue how to test it, other than fitting it, filling it with fuel, putting it back in, hooking back up the battery and seeing if it works. So that is exactly what I'm going to do. Yes. Yes. Anybody out there that was watching me screw the sender in, yes, I know I missed the earth cable off. I've redone that now, made a new earth cable and taken off the screw and put it back on again. One of those 5 screws should have been the earth terminal, needs to go through it. So thank you. Thanks for shouting at your screens. I did do that. I've also found a random brown wire dangling inside the engine bay, which I think is the actual signal from the fuel sender up to the actual gauge. I can't see what else it would be, and there's a brown wire on the back of the gauge, which is, and I can't test the continuity because my meter has run out of batteries. I need a 9-volt battery, and I can't get to the shops because I've come here in the bus. I've just connected it in the hope that it is, because I can't see anything else that it could be. That is enough yabbering on. The engine's going back in. The engine is bolted in. Now I need to do the reverse process. Fuel line, accelerator cable, power, put some fuel in the tank and see what happens. All right, here we go. Fuel is going in. Getting close now. The moment of truth is here. I've lowered the bus back down, the bumpers are on, the clutch feels good, the throttle feels good. I haven't got much fuel. I literally like half a jerry can, maybe 1.5 litres, that's all it's got. Now is the time to find out if the bus will start and move again under its own power. Hopefully I can roll it out the workshop, then I can get straight to the petrol station, get some fuel, and job well done. But we still don't know if that fuel gauge works. But anyway, one thing at a time. Let's see if the bus starts and drives. Yes! What a long day it's been. I'm going to go and get some fuel to see if the fuel gauge is actually working. But at least the bus is back together again. Did the brake lights work? I can't see. Let me know. The fuel gauge is working perfectly. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you've subscribed so you get your notifications. Bye bye.